Dean, for allowing me to be with you, albeit from a distance. I gotta say, Dean, you're the first guy who ever asked me to talk about.
I'm just gonna figure out why do I do this. Hold on a second. There we go. Let's try that again. Okay. All right, give me the sound back, if you will. Great.
Hey, greetings to all of you at Carlisle. I'm Eric Olson. Thank you, Dean, for allowing me to be with you, albeit from a distance. I gotta say, Dean, you're the first guy who ever asked me to talk about love. I gotta say that the more I thought about it, the more I was struck by the importance of discussing it, particularly in a military context where it doesn't get talked about often enough. I'm here to say that I believe that love is an under-acknowledged emotion and a force as it relates to military service members and especially soldiers at war. But it is certainly a force that drives much individual behavior, and intentionally so, in moments of victory or defeat, life or death. Most of us will readily admit to loving many people and things in our lives. Who and what we love is a big part of who we are. But few of us are ready to talk about love as a defining element of ourselves when we are under pressure, when emotions are raw and character can't be faked. Instead, we use other words. We talk about bonding, about the brotherhood or sisterhood of arms, or the glue that holds a small unit together when things look very bad. But when everything is on the line, when decisions and actions come more from the heart and gut than from the brain, based on instinct, character, and emotion, the power of love dominates. It crushes caution and fear. Love of purpose and of the opportunity to do what you have trained so hard to do. Love for the people you depend on and who depend on you matter the most. I'm not recommending that you go around talking about how much you love each other. I'm only suggesting that we individually recognize that love is a powerful motivator and one that we should let roam freely inside each of us. I wish all of you great success. Again, Dean, thank you for allowing me to be with you.
Isn't that beautiful? I like what he says, the power of love dominates, it crushes caution and fear. In other words, love is more powerful than fear. And I think that's worth remembering, because to me the light always drives out the darkness. I mean, sometimes it has to be a really bright light these days because there's a lot of darkness in the world. But I take solace in that. And when people are in pain, when they're suffering, there's a receptivity to change that you don't find otherwise. It's hard to change. But if you're hurting badly enough and you say, wow, that's weird, and meditation, and love, and yoga, and all this stuff, but okay, it's got research showing it works, let me give it a try, and then they try it and their pain goes away. Then they sometimes say things like, having a heart attack was the best thing that ever happened to me. And you go like, what, are you nuts? And they say, no, that's what it took to get my attention to begin making these changes, to transform my life in such a beautiful way that I might not have done that otherwise. At Duke, they did a study, and they found that those that were unmarried but didn't have a close confidant were more than 3 times as likely to be dead 5 years later, 50% versus 15%. And you can see that, even being married and not having a confidant is better than being unmarried without a confidant. Just having somebody around. We have a need for each other. David Spiegel did a landmark study many years ago at Stanford where he took women with metastatic breast cancer, and they were all getting the same chemo, radiation, and surgery, but one group, in addition, met for an hour and a half once a week for a year in a supportive support group like what we've been doing. Stopped it a year later. 5 years later, he told me he almost fell off his chair. Those patients lived twice as long as those that didn't have the support group. Now, a skeptic might say, oh, please, give me a break. I mean, talking about my feelings is going to help me live longer if I've got breast cancer, please. But they do, because we are touchy-feely creatures, And Nicholas Christakis in the New England Journal of Medicine had a wonderful study that came out a few years ago that found out we are so linked, we are so interconnected already, that if your friends are obese, you're 45% more likely to be overweight yourself. If your friends' friends are obese, you're 25% more likely. And if it's your friends' friends' friends, you're 10% more likely to be overweight. That's how interconnected we are. And not just obesity, but smoking, drinking, depression, happiness, pretty much everything. Because we are already interconnected. Now, you can only be intimate to the degree you can open your heart and be vulnerable. But it's hard to do that because there are some mean people out there. You can get hurt. And so we've learned not to do that. In fact, if you've ever been abused by a parent, let's say, if you're emotionally or sexually or physically abused, you learn that it's not at all safe to open your heart. And it's one of the reasons why people who are emotionally abused have much higher rates of lots of bad things as a way of kind of distancing themselves from that pain. So anything that helps us to open up to each other is healing and provides that sense of meaning. And to me, real spiritual teachers teach us how to live a joyful, spiritual, fun, juicy life, happy life. It's not about being austere, it's about how do you enjoy life. My teacher, man named Swami Satchidananda, was an ecumenical teacher. When I was suicidally depressed when I was in college because I learned I could take all the meaning out of everything. Who cares? So what? Big deal. Nothing matters. Just take all the meaning out. And I was all ready to do myself in. And I got so run down physically that I got this bad case of infectious mononucleosis. And my parents took me home to recuperate. My plan was to get strong enough to kill myself. But in the meantime, my older sister had been kind of a child of the 60s, and this Swami had helped her. So my parents decided to have a cocktail party for the Swami. This was back in Dallas in 1972. It's pretty weird. These days we're in Dallas. But and there's an old saying that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And in walks this Swami, looking like Central Casting's idea of what a Swami should look like, long white beard and his saffron robe. And he gave a talk in our living room, and he started off by saying, "Nothing can bring you lasting happiness," which I'd already figured out, which is why I was ready to do myself in, except he was glowing. I'm like, what am I missing? And he went on to say what probably, again, sounds like a New Age cliche, but it turned my life around, which is that nothing can bring you lasting happiness, but he said, you already have it. Our nature is to be happy and peaceful. And that not being mindful of that, we end up running after all these things in the world, thinking that we're going to get it from outside ourselves. And once you set up that view of the world, however it turns out, you generally feel worse. Because until you get it, whatever that it is, it might be more money, more power, more beauty, more accomplishment, whatever. If only I had blank, then I'd be happy, then I'd be healthy, then people would love me, then I wouldn't feel so lonely and isolated. Once you set up that view of the world, until you get it, you feel stressed. And you know from the studies like the one I told you about with Elizabeth Blackburn, that the stress comes from our perception of the world, not just what's out there, it's how we interact with it. So if I don't get it, I feel stressed. If someone else gets it and I don't, then I feel really bad. And it reinforces that we live in this kind of zero-sum game, dog-eat-dog, hostile world. And even if we get it, it's really seductive in the moment because it's like, I got it, now I'm good, now I'm happy. Except it doesn't last. And how many times have you said, gosh, if only I made $10,000 a year, I'd be happy, or $20,000, whatever it happens to be. And it's like, well, now what? Or so what, So what the Swami taught me was that, and I think this is true in all spiritual traditions, whatever name you give to it, is that our nature is to be happy, and not being aware of that, we run after all these things that we think are going to bring us what we have already, and in the ultimate irony, we end up disturbing what we could have already if we just stopped doing that. And so the whole idea of undoing really comes from, not that these, spirit like prayer or meditation or yoga don't bring you a sense of peace, but rather, at least temporarily, they help us stop disturbing what's already there. And that may sound like semantics, but it's really all the difference in the world, because if it's out there, then I have to get what's out there, and then everyone who has what I think I need has power over me. If it's within me, then the question really is, what am I doing to disturb my own inner inherent peace and joy and well-being? And that, again, not to blame, but to empower, because I can do something about that. And so, at the end of a meditation, or whatever you do to quiet down, remind yourself that those techniques didn't bring that to you, that you already have that. At least temporarily, they help you stop doing what was disturbing that. And then we can go out in the world, and no matter how busy things are, we can stay grounded in that place. And also, we can access our own inner wisdom, that little, still, small voice within that speaks very clearly but very quietly, that wakes us up at 3 in the morning and says, hey, listen up, pay attention, you're not doing something that's in your best interest. You can access that much more directly. And so the Dalai Lama is another wonderful spiritual teacher. He says, my religion is happiness. And he says, be kind whenever possible, and it's always possible. I love that. And he's such a happy, if you've had the chance to be with him, as many of us have, that laugh of his, which is so infectious, George Lucas sampled to be Yoda's laugh, just because, it's kind of the essence of what it means to be a happy person. And if anybody has reason to be unhappy, it would be him, watching this whole culture get decimated. And yet, even with all that, to show how we can stay in that place. Now, if you say, I feel deprived because I can't eat everything I want, that's not really sustainable. If you say, I'm choosing not to eat certain foods because that brings meaning, So that, I mean, I ask people that I work with, why do you want to live longer? People assume that, why do you live longer? If you told me when I was ready to kill myself, I was going to live longer, I said, you don't get it. I'm just trying to get through the day like so many people are. But if you get people to say, why do you want to live longer? Oh, well, I want to watch my kids grow up. I want to dance at their wedding. I want to write a book. I want to, whatever it is, it makes those changes so much more sustainable. And that, all religions and have dietary guidelines, and they're often in conflict with each other. One religion you can eat this food, but not that food, or certain days of the week, or certain times of the day, or certain months of the year, whatever. It's like, is God confused? I don't know. But whatever the intrinsic benefit of not eating or eating certain foods, just the act of choosing not to do something that you otherwise can do imbues those choices with meaning. In other words, I learned to take all the meaning out when I got so depressed when I was in college. But one of the ways you imbue choices with meaning is by saying, I'm only going to eat certain foods, I'm only going to have sex with one person, or whatever that happens to be. Is that the ball and chain? Well, it can be. Or it can make it the most special, the most erotic, the most pleasurable, the most fun, the most joyful, the most happy. By imbuing those choices with meaning, that what you gain is so much more than what you give up. Again, why do you want to live longer? Because it's not just how long we live, it's also how well we live. And to me, meaning is the antithesis of depression. And it's malleable. As I mentioned, you can take it out, you can put it in. And one way to put it in is by choosing not to do certain things. So, in the 60s, a lot of people said, oh, let's just have sex with everybody. And there's no judgment there. But after a while, there's a South Indian saint named Ramakrishna 100 years ago said, you can dig a lot of shallow wells and never reach water. You can dig a deep one and reach the wellspring. Again, what you gain is so much more than what you give up. So instead of having the same kind of experience with a lot of different people, many people find when they create that sense of safety by being in, say, a monogamous relationship, again, it's not a judgment. It's like, oh, I can open my heart more and more to this one person, and the more open I am, the more intimate it is. The more intimate it is, the more erotic it becomes. It's having these infinitely variable experiences with the same person instead of these similar experiences with different people. So again, when you understand from a spiritual standpoint that these are all choices that we have, and the ultimate goal is to be happy and healthy and to stop disturbing what's already there and to have these wonderful experiences, then it makes it meaningful and therefore it makes it sustainable. That intimacy is really healing. And we have that kind of what the Swami called the double vision. And on one level, we are separate.